Hi, I'm Dr. Kathy Bush.
And hello, I'm Dr. Tara Peters, and we are the Leadership Doctors.
Today we're excited to be sharing an interview with Matt Buchholz, who is the President and General Manager of MotoRad, which participates actively in the aftermarket industry. He'll be telling us a bit more about what they do at MotoRad and how work looks at this moment in time during the pandemic and the impact that that's had on his business. Both Tara and I had an opportunity to meet Matt. I think it was about 9 years ago now, as an executive MBA student. And we enjoyed learning leadership and other subjects with him as an MBA student. And we're excited to talk to him about where he's been on his leadership journey. And again, what's really important and on his mind as he's leading in this current pandemic time. So welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is an absolute pleasure.
It's a great pleasure for us as well. So we are excited to share your journey a little bit with our audience. And so if you could just give us a sense of your career path and progression towards this role you have now as the President and General Manager of a cool organization.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. And I've been in the automotive industry for over 20 years. I think it's like 23 years now, and that's all that I know, and I'm passionate about it. But I'm also passionate about leadership, so thanks for having me because I love talking about leadership, and that stems from seeds that you planted in me 9 years ago that I'm forever grateful for. But in automotive, I've worked at every spot in the supply chain. So I started out in college installing products as a technician, diagnosing cars, and that's how I worked my way through college. And then I got into sales and marketing. I learned that I had a passion for customers. So I've been in sales and marketing. And for the last, I'd say 16, 17 years, I've been on the parts distribution side of the automotive market, specifically focused on the aftermarket. And my sales and marketing roles varied over time, and that led me to MotoRad in 2015. And as you said, I'm the president of North America for MotoRad. And MotoRad is a mid-market company. We're privately held, and we have just south of 500 employees globally, and I'm responsible for a couple hundred of those in North America. We supply automotive thermostats, electrical components like engine management components and caps to the automotive market. And we're passionate about people. We are very intentional about culture at MotoRad, and it's one of the my favorite assignments that I've ever had. It's really been a pleasure working for MotoRad.
So, Matt, as you were talking and you were making reference there to culture, I can imagine that during this time, that's something that you're really trying to protect as you navigate through this pandemic, because your people are so important to your work. So kind of give our audience a window into how you're managing your operations, what the impact has been on them, and then also too, how you're helping your team really through this time of uncertainty and challenge that's come about as a result of COVID.
Yeah, it's been a challenge. Things for recently have settled down. Like I'd say this week, it's less crisis management because in the beginning, like many companies, our supply chain was affected initially, going back to the beginning of the first quarter. So we managed through that. And we managed through that very well. I was very proud of our team and how we managed through the crisis as it hit Asia. We were able to maintain our service levels, continue to manufacture products. And then the virus came here, of course, locally and started to impact us locally. It started out with some absenteeism, some concern about, of course, whether we're actually distributing out of Southern Illinois. Illinois was the second state to do shelter in place. At that point, automotive was not officially declared an essential business. So while the governor was speaking, I was researching whether or not we're an essential business because we had a scheduled call with our employees immediately after the governor's announcement. So we had to quickly, within 15 minutes, we self-determined that we were essential based on the definition of what I found in New York. And we told we got alignment from the mayor of our of our city. So we called the mayor and said, and he agreed with us in our position. And then we gathered our team together. We were very open, honest, and transparent with them. And we have been all along. I think that's been one takeaway for me is just, even if it's bad news, like just be honest about the bad news and don't try to sugarcoat things with our employees. So we've done that throughout this entire crisis. From that point forward, we've managed to stay open. Our business has dropped. We've seen a drop in demand, but it's dropped about 40% as we currently meet right now. But our distributors are down about 25%. But because we're in automotive and we are an essential business, we anticipate that rebounding very quickly, and we've had just great communication around with our customers, our team members through the entire process. We had one of the most proud moments that I've had in this process was right before we slowed down, because we've done furloughs and vacations. We've really slowed down as an organization with the market. And right before that, we did a virtual sales and marketing meeting that was supposed to be in person. And it was a really critical time for us because we just acquired a company, and this was going to be our first meeting as a combined company. And it was a big point in our history. We had to do it virtually. But on that virtual call, to see the team communicate the work that they had planned, because we were going through our OKRs. So we're reporting on our first quarter results and our second quarter goals. And that was, in 5 years, it was like a dream come true. I was so proud of our team and the work that they had done and the work that they had planned, and the integration work that had happened, and just the culture, seeing it come alive. That it felt, on one hand, I was like, man, I can't believe we're forced to slow down right now. But I was incredibly proud of the team and the work that they put in so far, and to do it virtually and see it all, like, for us to do a very successful virtual meeting using Zoom. It was really amazing. So that was a few weeks ago. Of course, since then we've slowed down, but we continue to focus on, there's really two things we focus on, and that's our integration work from the acquisition that we made, and then any customer commitments that we have. So and then maintaining service levels through those. So that's our focus. Anything else that can be deferred, we've deferred those activities.
I love this story. I'm amazed at all of the stories I hear about the adaptability that organizations have had to put in place given this situation, and it's the way that your team kind of rallied and accomplished the goals and adapted to a different way of delivering, and probably had that least amount of time to figure all that out and make it as successful as possible. And so that speaks a lot to the resilience and commitment people have. Okay, so not everybody who elevates into roles of leadership really puts a lot of time into kind of thinking about what it means to be an effective leader. I know you care a lot about that, and you have shared with us that you've spent at least the last decade investing in that, and we'll hear a little bit more of how you've done that. But I want to talk a little bit about leadership principles. And so I know that you have, in your philosophies and your values, you have some principles of leading people that you find to be really important and that you focus on. And so I wondered if you could share with our audience some of those key principles, and if any of them are in particular kind of rising to a higher priority right now, given the pandemic and the situation that your organization is facing. And so, give us a sense of some of these leadership principles that you're following.
We kind of briefly touched on some of them, but when we hire people, we look for people that have the right character, that have the chemistry for the position that we're looking for, and then of course they have to be a cultural fit. And anytime we've made a hiring, anytime we've had a successful hire, there's a very close match on all of those things. And then typically when we look back and when we make a mistake in hiring, because we own that, it's a bi-directional, the pre-boarding process is so bi-directional with people. And when something doesn't work out, I feel a strong sense of responsibility if we ever have to release an employee that we just didn't pre-board and qualify appropriately. So I feel like if you bring the right person, you put the right person in the right seat, and then you challenge that person with the right mission, and then you have a mission that they believe in, that their heart's in, and of course have an appropriate scoreboard. If we do those things well, then you don't really have to manage that individual. right? That individual's managing themselves and they're working hard. Yeah, you don't feel like you have to certainly micromanage them, because I'm not wired to do that. So that's a couple of things that I've touched on, but I feel like if we do that piece well and consistently, then we win. And when we don't do it, we're not gonna, it feels like more of a challenge. It feels like we all have to work harder to make something fit that's not fitting. I heard a leader say one time, be slow to hire and quick to fire. And that's such an insightful phrase. And it's always stuck with me, because we need to be really diligent and really slow to hire, even though the need sometimes is really critical to the mission. But we have to be slow to hire, because that speeds us up as an organization later on.
Matt, as you were talking, you guys are spending a lot of time on the front end, as you said, to make sure that there's cultural fit, that you get people in the right seat, right? All those preliminary kinds of decisions that you make. So you're increasing the likelihood that you've got people who are joining you, right? Who are highly engaged, highly motivated, right? For the work that they're going to be doing with the organization. And so we chatted a little bit about how Kathy and I have written this book around called the Demotivate Employee, really this issue around how do we keep highly motivated, engaged people in that state? And when they bump into a situation where their motivation begins to slump, how do we help them? And so we'd like to hear from you, given this time, there's a lot of stress. You talked about that you've got a team that's engaged, but they're likely navigating some challenges. So what are the things that you're doing to help your employees to stay engaged and not to lose their motivation during this time?
Yeah, so I think in the past, I've actually been self-aware enough to feel at times where I've been demotivated, and I reflect on that, like what's causing me to be demotivated. And typically, I believe we're all gifted with certain gifts, and if we can structure a day where we're spending at least 70% of our time on whatever those gifts are, that's going to keep us motivated, as well as having a very clear mission. And for us, we have a healthy culture. When I joined MotoRad, the first thing I discovered that I was very thankful for was the management team was very humble. Because when you have these kind of two opposing forces, you have humility and you have pride. And pride is very difficult to work with. Humility, you can go very fast, because with humility, you can build trust. So we've been very intentional about that since then. I'm building a high-performing team. And once you build that team, I think today it's really, we have trust. Like, we have very high trust in our organization, which allows us to move quickly and make decisions. We don't play political games necessarily. And because we have high trust, we can be transparent. So from the very beginning, whatever the facts are, even if it's bad news, we communicate that to the team. And we say, hey, this is what we're dealing with, and this is how it's impacting our business. And we're going to make mistakes on this journey, but this is how we believe as a leadership team that we need to manage through this. And whether or not if you don't agree with it, then of course let us know if you have a better idea. But if you see us making mistakes, help us get better, sharpen us, but go with it, lean in with us, because we're all in this together, and we're all going to share in this this softness or decline in our business together. But because we have the high trust, and because we've been very open and honest about the business projections and how everybody's going to share the load. So far, everybody seems to be all in right now.
So trust is such a critical element of engagement, and the relationship that we have between leaders and employees, and that the trust that's in that relationship can help us overcome those really hard times, certainly in terms of that motivational slump that Tara was asking about. And so appreciate that example. So Matt, if there's somebody who's watching this, and I think there probably will be, who's early in their career, and they're thinking, boy, I feel like I'm going to be on this path of leadership, or I want to cause this leadership journey to take me down an opportunity where I get to be the president of an organization like Matt. What should I be doing to develop myself? And so think in terms of kind of giving mentoring or advice to somebody along those lines. What, based on your experience, what would you tell somebody about their development path and things that you've learned that might help them think about what they could be doing?
Yeah. So I'm normally not an originator of ideas. I typically take ideas from people like yourselves that I've heard and apply them to my life. So everything that I'm going to share here is not original ideas. So I'm not going to claim any originality. In fact, even somebody, a friend of mine, taught me the CARE principle: copy and rip off everything. Now, of course, that doesn't apply to intellectual property, but ideas, right? So that's what I do. So I heard once, and it's in order to be a great leader, you have to lead yourself well first. So it starts with leading yourself before you can lead others. And that's what you planted seeds in me. You both planted seeds in me 9 years ago around that. Like, what is it like to be on the other side of me, whether it's as a cohort, whether a spouse or a team that I happen to, if I'm fortunate to lead a team, what is it like to be on the other side of my leadership? And then you have to discover truth in that. Because if you know the truth and what it's like to be, which sometimes the truth really hurts. I've been through 360 experiences twice. Both of them were very difficult. But feedback is a gift. And if you're willing to take that gift from people, then you can actually make changes. You go from unconsciously incompetent to consciously incompetent, I guess is what I've heard before, right? So we do that, and you do that over and over and over again, because none of us are perfect, and we're all on a leadership journey. So I would say seek the truth on what it's like to be on the other side of you, and then use your competence and wisdom and seek ways to make that better. We're always going to have blind spots, but some of us are more aware of our blind spots. And one example that I have now is I actually seek feedback. Anytime I do a performance evaluation, I asked my direct report to do one back on me. And it's probably my least favorite part of the performance evaluation, but it's so critical, right? To get to the end of it and say, all right, I want you to rate me as a manager, and I want you to give me real feedback. And if we have a trusting relationship, they're going to give me real and raw feedback. If they don't trust me, they're not going to give it to me. So that's why 360s are really critical, so that it's anonymous, because sometimes it's difficult for people to give that. So over the last 10 years, I've been on this journey where I've tried to seek that out, as painful as it may be, and then also develop. Once I realize what that deficiency is, how do I fix it? And I think it's emotional intelligence. And so once you become a leader worth following, then you can lead others. So the second group of people that you need to lead well is your family. A lot of companies have practices to interview families or spouses to see how they lead at home. That's really a healthy practice for the companies that do that. And then so first, number one, importance, lead yourself well. Number two, your family well. Number three, your team. And then number four would be your organization. Number fifth, most important, is your community. So that's how I kind of look at it, is how am I balancing my time between those 5 circles of influence, but being most important is you can't give what you don't possess. And if you're not a great leader, you can't teach people how to be great leaders yourself. So I really focus on becoming what I desire other people to be.
Well, Matt, you've shared so many great insights with us today, and we know that our viewers have perspective that they didn't have previous to viewing your interview segment. And so we want to invite everyone to head to our website to view more of these videos at theleadershipdoctors.com, because we have more lessons from leaders that we want to share with you. And so, Matt, we can't thank you enough for being a part of today's segment, and we wish you the best in your journey and look forward to seeing all the cool things that you're going to be doing as president.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure. Y'all have given me so many gifts over the years. I just enjoy spending time with you, and thank you very much for this time together.
It's our pleasure. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.